Hey guys, this is Spunkify here for League Top 10, and I've restarted this video 8 times. But enough about me, how are you? Fantastic. Let's talk about Karma, shall we? Karma is a cheap support champion. She's not focused primarily on healing, but on offensive and defensive mobility and support. She is a 3150 IP champion, and despite being 3150 IP, she's quite unique in my opinion, and offers some unique buffs for your team. Karma's ultimate is available to her at level 1 unlike other champions. However, it's not a traditional ultimate that does its own thing. Her ultimate is called Mantra, and it allows her to modify her existing Q, W, and E spells, and allow them to have an additional effect. Karma's ultimate has 2 charges, and then has a fairly long cooldown, while her abilities at max rank Q through E have a fairly short cooldown, meaning you really have to be picky about what you use her ultimate on. Now, I played around with Karma as both an AP nuker and as a support champion, and in my opinion she best plays as a support, and I dare say a mage tank. Because Karma's strong shield and ability to slow targets and speed up allies, she can essentially initiate a team fight all on her own simply by casting her shield on herself and baiting the enemy team. Although she does get tankier the more AP she has, due to the fact that her shield scales decently off of AP, I still feel that she has a better chance to survive and be an asset to the team as a tanky support, rather than a nuker. The reason is that Karma's only direct damaging ability is her Q. While her W and E can do damage, they are both situational damage. For her W to deal damage, it actually has to pass through an enemy, which means the beam has to go over them. So it can't be counted on for a specific target. It's just whoever your beam is attached to, if they pass over them, they get damage. The damage is for the most part also negligible, even at moderate AP levels. As for the damage from her E, it requires a charge from her ultimate, and it requires you to be fairly close to your enemies. Which, as an actual mage, you don't want to really be close to anybody melee. I found that outside of clearing creep waves in conjunction with your Q, it wasn't a feasible damage source for every team fight, since you can only use it for damage twice due to her ultimate restrictions. However, against a squishy champion at lower levels during a lane phase, it can actually be fairly devastating. In the end, I just find it being able to support my real damage dealers, my AD and my actual AP nukers, with a lot of shield and speed ups and occasional damage or heals, is a better role for Karma overall. So for Karma I ran the typical runes and masteries, but for summoner spells I went Clarity and Ghost. Clarity really keeps Karma, really allows Karma to maintain her support levels, since her abilities have a really short cooldown at max rank, meaning that you can spam it and use a lot of mana that quickly. It also ensures you almost never have to leave your lane early on. As for my first items, I still prefer the Doran's Ring, even with the increased cost. Karma has a decent heal, although not the best, and if you played properly you can still keep you and your ally at decent HP levels without being zoned out of the creeps and experience. Karma is a great support champion for a team with melee carries though, because of her shield and speed beam. Even as early as level 2, you and an ally can tower dive a squishy champion because of how strong her speed beam is, as well as her shield. A full tower shot early on can be mitigated by your shield at level 1 shield rather. And oftentimes if your ally is someone like Garen or Zen, with your beam they're on top of the enemy before they even can react. It's just that quick. It's amazing. Depending on who was in my lane, I typically went either W or E first, and then got the other one next. I only took one rank of W until about level 6, and before then I just simply went, speed increase, because it's mitigated usually because the enemies don't have boots. So that's W or E first, then Q, then E and Q basically, with W being one rank until level 6. Because Karma's ultimate doesn't rank up, you have instead 6 ranks of her Q, W, and E spells. Now, Karma is not a champion to solo with, in my opinion. While she can keep enemies away from her if she is decently spaced out, as soon as they get up and close to her, she has no real way to get away from them. Especially if she gets stunned or slowed, she is pretty much screwed. The slow from her beam relies on her continuously moving at a melee safe distance and out of range of any interceptor stuns for it to really be effective. Otherwise, what's the purpose of being, slowed if they're right on top of you? And it's for this reason that it's best to dual lane with someone. Now, as for farming, Karma does decent damage to minion waves with her Q at about rank 3. It does about half of their HP. So if the minion wave is hurt, she can clear it fairly effectively with only a few left for last auto attacks. Now, later on, if you get your E ranked up some, and then use your ultimate with E in conjunction with Q, you can clear almost an entire creep wave just with that. Although, remember, it does use an ultimate charge to do so, so you may be out of luck if a team fight breaks out right afterwards and you only have one rank of your ultimate to use. Now, once she's gotten some gold farmed up, I typically went for a Soul Shroud first, just so that I was able to have that mana regen for both me and the team, as well as the cooldown reduction and the general tankiness. I like to build her like I would build Taric, only ranged. Soul Shroud, and an Aegis of Legion, a Codex, and then team-specific defensive items was usually the build I went. Since Karma is a great buffer, it only makes sense to get items that add to the buffs that she provides. Cooldown reduction items are Karma's pretty much best friend. Unless the other team is heavy CC, I also usually just went for the cooldown boots as well, instead of just Mercury Treads. Now, by late game, her cooldowns are low enough so that you can almost infinitely kite a melee champion around with the use of your E and W, since they both almost have non-existent cooldowns at that point. I believe in a lot of cases I kited a melee champion or a ranged champion pretty much from their base all the way to my base with little damage taken, just because of how good the shield is and how good the slow is from your W. Now, some good tips for playing as Karma would be to cast your shield on the initiator with an application of your ultimate right as they go on him. What this does is that will do AoE damage around him as well as shield him from any initial burst, and that usually will then help the rest of your team to clean it up. I usually also only cast my speed beam on an ally who is going for the enemy carrier nuker. That way they can get in their face that much quicker and apply that pressure really quick, as well as any enemies that pass through the beam get slowed. I'll only cast it on the enemies if they're out of the way and away from my team, and I'm waiting for my team to catch up. That way I can slow them consistently and allow my team to get close and get the kill without me having to worry about that person escaping. Now, if you're playing against the Karma, just try and make sure you're in their face as much as possible. There's really little she can do to get away from, point blank range. Her slow, like I said before, is only good if you keep that distance, and her shield, while good, doesn't make up for someone stunning you and then just unloading everything on top of you. Also, if you're playing in a team fight and the Karma's on the opposite team, try to zone her away from whoever she has her beam connected to. If you push her away from that person, not only does it screw the person the beam's connected to because they can't catch up to your allies, but it also puts her at a disadvantage because she's lost her movement speed as well. Her Q, when she has her ultimate active, does a decent heal, but it's not the best. And it only has 2 applications if she has her full mantra up in order to heal. Meaning that she can only heal for a decent amount, and any consistent pressure or an ignite for that matter would mitigate that almost completely. So overall, my opinion of Karma is that she's a great support champion. She's a little different than our standard support champions like Jaina, Taric, Soraka, or Sona, in that those pretty much focused on healing with some, defensive capabilities. With Karma, it's more of a buff-debuff, which I know the other ones provide buffs and debuffs as well with armor and such, but this one feels a little bit more engaging, because essentially you're working with about 5 spells. I say 5 because when you activate your ultimate on your W, it doesn't actually give you a different effect. It just speeds it up or slows it down that much more. So you're working with about 5 spells. And so your combinations and the way you actually interact in the team fight feels a lot more engaged than just simply sitting there and healing, stunning, etc. You actually can use your abilities a lot quicker, and I feel like she's one of the more active support champions, with Sona coming in very close as a second. Overall, though, I just feel it's a lot more rewarding to speed someone up and then, watch your beam pass over them and slow them down, rather than just applying your own stun or a slow just by right-clicking on them. It takes a little bit more finesse, in my opinion, to master her abilities. And to be able to kite someone completely across a battlefield of the Summer Rifts or something like that is really rewarding. There are a couple applications or a couple video clips in here where I either brought my whole team from their end to our end with them chasing us, or, even with, I remember one time where Xin Zhao was chasing our Ashe and me, and I was able to kite him from his base all the way to our base, even when he had Ghost applied and Yuumi was Ghost played. It wasn't until he was sped up by someone, along with all the combinations, everything, that he finally caught up to our Ashe and killed her at our base. but for that long of a period for us to kite him was pretty impressive. In the end, guys, if you guys like playing support, if you guys like support champions, Karma is a definite buy in my opinion. She's she may even be, in my opinion, borderline OP with the speed up and slowdown numbers from her W and her cooldowns at max rank, just because she can kite so well. Her damage numbers aren't that great, so maybe that makes up for a little bit, because I've never really been able to finish off a champion from start to finish by myself. Although in this video I do get a triple kill. It is, however, from KSing, I will admit that. But she is great at keeping people pressure applied to them with the help of her allies in the speed beam or slowing them down. And in my opinion, she is a definite pick if you're looking for a fun, refreshing champion. This is a breath of fresh air in my opinion versus Renekton, who was 6300 IP, had a quote-unquote new ability or interaction, but just didn't live up to it. I feel Karma really is a great support champion. They, in my opinion, if you wanted to balance her out just a bit, maybe slow down the speed up of her W at level 1, perhaps give her healing a little bit scaling at later on. Early on I feel it's okay, but later on give it just a bit more scaling, so that it heals just for a tad bit more, because I feel like without going super AP or being really low HP, since her passive gives her extra HP at lower HP levels, it didn't just heal for enough, maybe 200 to 300 at max rank with 200 to 300 AP, which that's not, in my opinion, a great heal when people have 3,200, 2,500 HP. Anyways, guys, let me know what you thought of her in the comments. I hope this video was insightful. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below. If they're well written, I will respond to them if I have the time. If you guys enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, because it does help the channel, it does help the video get noticed, and it helps out you guys to get more content later on. This has been Spunkify out. I'll see you later.
Awesome possum.